Brilliant. So, Mrs McMillan, would you come up and give us a testimony? Because we'd love to hear what the word of the Lord is saying in the person's life. Come on. All right.
I'm joking. So listening. My testimony starts at the age of, I did look at that, it's a bit high. My testimony starts at the age of 5, when I first started school. Back then, the teachers used to get you to pray in the morning, and they would, through the day, often read you wee Bible stories. Now, I remember that because I loved that. And this teacher in particular, it's the only one I can remember out of all my teachers I had, Mrs Shewan. She was an elderly lady, but she used to tell us the stories, and I don't know, it was just back then, I used to love and look forward to hearing the stories more than anything else that was going on in the class. So that was at the age of 5. At the age of 11, we, coming from a travelling family, we used to stay in Aberdeen town in the winter time, and we would go away in the caravan trailer all summer. We would go back for the winter. But anyway, this was during part of the winter. I got a terrible sweet tooth, and I fancied one of my favourite sweeties. It was a Monster bar. And so I took myself off to the shop, which was a bit away from the house, and I would have got into trouble from my mum if she had known I had went. So I sneaked away. So when I got to the top of the road, I crossed the road, and I stopped in my tracks. I heard people singing from this building, and I stood there for maybe a minute, and I thought, my goodness, they sing like angels. So I put my wee head into the wee gospel hall. It was the fountain hall. I don't know if maybe you know that. Yeah. That's right. Okay. So put my head in through the door, and there was a man standing, and he said, "Come in." So I went in, and I sat at the back. It was pews at the time, and I sat on at the very back of the wee hall, and I kept watching all these people singing, and I was just captured by the sound of their voices. It was beautiful. So after maybe 2-3 hymns was sung, there was an old man went up, and he seemed old to me. Maybe he wasn't old, but he seemed old then. And he started to preach the gospel. And he was talking about Jesus and what happened to Jesus before he went on the cross, and all the punishment that he took and why that happened. And then he spoke about hell for the sinner. And I bent my head down, and truly not understanding all what he said, but I knew it was the truth. And I said, "Please God," I said, "don't let me go to this place that this man's talking about." It sounded so horrible. So that was at the age 11, and at the end of the meeting, they started singing again, and I just loved the sound of the voices. And at the end, I went out of the wee gospel hall, and I went just across the road, and I got what I wanted, the sweetie that I had intended to go out to get in the first place. So I went back home. Now that was when I was 11. Now when I was later on in years, I got married to Hughie, and we settled in a house for the winter, and Hughie got an invitation to go and hear a man preach the gospel. And he refused to go. He says, "No," he said, "it's no for me." He says, but anyway, I jumped at the chance. I says, "Can I go?" And it was his mum and dad, and they came round, and they picked me up, not knowing where I was going. I just wanted to hear the word of God. I just wanted to go somewhere where I could hear somebody speak about God. So anyway, they started driving, and as they drove up to the wee gospel hall, I said to them, "Oh, I've been here before when I was 11. I said, I sat at the back of this wee church, I says, and the people sing beautiful in here, thinking to hear the same people again. But the songs was the same. It was beautiful. The voices probably weren't the same people, but it was beautiful. They sang beautiful. So went in and listened to the gospel being preached, and I thought, no, this is the truth. And I sat in my seat at the end, and I would not get up. And the wee gospel hall people started to leave. I just stayed there, and there was two men came down. One was Jim Davidson, and the other one was what was his name again? Huey, the wee man. Eddie, yeah. And they spoke to me, and they asked me like how I felt about what I'd heard, and I says, I know it's the truth, I says, and yous have got something I haven't got. I says, yous have got the Lord, I says, and how do I get the Lord? I said, I want to know Jesus, I want to know God, I want to be saved, and I want to repent from my sins. So anyway, they prayed with me, and from that day on, I felt like at the time when I said I prayed, I felt like a brand new person. I felt like everything had lifted off my chest. I felt like a new person. And I remember saying something silly at the time when I felt like that. I said, oh Lord, you've done so much for me. I said, all the punishment that you took when you went on that cross and all that you went through, I said, I'll never ask you for anything again. Well, I think that lasted a couple of hours maybe. But anyway, as time went on, a couple of months, I kept asking Huey to go. I kept praying for him, and he kept saying, it's no for me. He says, if you like it, you keep going. And I did. I kept going, and thank the Lord, about maybe 3 months later, 4 months later, Huey got saved, but he got saved in our own house about 3:30 in the morning. And the Lord's done so much for me. He's brought me through grief, which I couldn't have coped on, I'll be honest. You think that you can, things happens in life and you've got to just get on with it. But I think without the Lord, I wouldn't have been able to cope with what I've had to cope with through my children. A lot of my children's had different illnesses. I've got 4 grandchildren that had been diagnosed with autism, and before the youngest one was diagnosed, I never knew what autism was. Didn't know what it was. But praise God, she was only about 2 when she was diagnosed, and now that she's 7, she's just been lifted off the spectrum. She doesn't need to go back to see any specialists anymore. That's the power of prayer. So I've got so much to thank God for. If I was to stand and tell you everything that God's done in my life, I've had 14 operations that the Lord has healed me through, and I'm able to lift my hands. There was a time when I lost all power on my hands. God's done so much for me, and I can't thank Him enough. God bless everybody.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.